It's no secret I spent a lot of time playing the first Dead Rising. For those who played it, I'm pretty sure you're aware of the core aspects of the game. Photojournalist Frank West is stuck in the mall for 72 hours while using anything as a weapon to survive, while he tries to uncover the truth behind the zombie outbreak. During the 72-hour mode, you'll have ample opportunities to level up Frank. For those who haven't played the game, I'll quickly describe the system. You earn a certain amount of prestige points and gain new abilities, health, attack damage, and other upgrades. The game provides you with several ways to gain prestige points, or PP. Defeating zombies, fighting psychopaths, taking pictures, interacting with the environment, and rescuing survivors. Rescuing survivors is one of the more lucrative methods of leveling up in the game, as they're the most common and consistent source of PP. To put it in perspective, you gain 2.8 million PP in a single playthrough if you rescue every survivor. This number increases to 3.2 million PP whenever you factor in the psychopath battles. This final number would bring Frank to level 39. Safe to say, survivors are pivotal to the gameplay of Dead Rising, from leveling up Frank to gaining several achievements or trophies in the game. For example, saving 10 survivors will grant you the Humanist achievement, saving 20 will grant you Lifesaver, and 50 will grant you the infamous Saint achievement. But there are a handful of other achievements that are tied to rescuing survivors. But with that said, if you played the game, you know how awful the survivor AI can be. At times they seem unresponsive and just get overwhelmed by zombies. Not to mention their pathfinding at times is a bit quirky and weird. I'm sure every Dead Rising veteran has pulled out their hair in escorting some of these survivors. Recently I saw a tier list that ranked survivors on the difficulty and returned them to the security room, and I didn't see any video discussing the survivors other than achievement guides on how to get some of the survivor related trophies. I thought I would include my own insight on this topic because for some survivors I have a lot to say and for others not so much. But I'm going to take it a step further. Although the rescue difficulty will be the primary criterion, I'm going to rank the survivors in the same bracket or tier based on several other factors. For example, if I consider a survivor a must-save survivor, such as if they're required for a certain achievement or have a side mission or some unlockable, then they'd be ranked higher than other survivors in their bracket, because in my mind, that makes them slightly less annoying. There are some other rules I'll lay out. Second, story survivors like Brad and Isabella won't be analyzed on this list. Finally, I'm ranking these guys based on my playstyle. I'll mention some speedrun tactics here and there because when I play a semi-unique way of mixing casual and speedrun tactics. I'll also mention other possible methods, but the core critique comes from my playthrough style, which I'll explain. If you rescue these guys a different way or disagree with me, then let me know in the comments. Just for reference, here's my ranking system. For those curious, all of my footage will come from the 2016 port of the game, and we'll start right at the top of the list. The only two survivors in this category are Jeff and Natalie. These two appear on the rooftop whenever you first complete the prologue. They act as a tutorial on how to recruit and save survivors. There is literally no reason not to save these guys on a fresh playthrough, as there's no challenge or difficulty in rescuing these guys. They offer a PP moment for a picture whenever they hug, which can grant you 10,000 PP, which is critical at an early level, and can give you the photojournalist or the artiste achievement. Recruiting and rescuing these guys can level you up 2 levels if you manage to take some pictures during the prologue, which is so important when you start the game. I honestly cannot think of anything negative about these two. Natalie has a type of AI where her pathfinding is tied to Jeff, meaning she'll only follow Jeff instead of Frank's commands. She isn't the only survivor to have this happen. Tanya will only follow Ross, and Rachel will only follow Jolie. I also hear that Pamela will only follow Heather, but I couldn't verify that. However, unlike Tanya, I can't think of a situation where this would negatively impact rescuing Natalie, as the entrance to the security room is right next to him. If you want to get down to details, Jeff is technically the closest to the security room, so he is essentially easier to save than Natalie. So going by the standards I've established, then Jeff is the least annoying survivor in the game. Good job, Jeff. So in this category, I have most of the Paradise Plaza survivors. Let's start with Simone. The reason I have Simone at the top of the bracket and above Tad is because she's required for the transmissionary achievement, which requires you to answer all of Otis's calls. In her side mission, if you give her a handgun, you will receive some extra PP. She's relatively easy to rescue as she's hiding in the CD shop next to the warehouse entrance. There most likely won't be a lot of zombies as you're probably coming right off of the Kent fight. which despawns most of them from the area. However, she does have a weird catch. She's the only survivor that requires the completion of a main story case. You must complete case 6-1 so Frank can tell Simone that Isabella knows about zombies. If you don't complete the case, she can't be saved. It should be said that if you're going for the Saint achievement, you can't get the true ending as you won't be at the 50 survivor mark. So in a Saint run, either you save her or Dr. Barnaby. It should also be said that these escorts are obviously easier on a level 50 run, and I did my Saint runs on PS4 and 360 after I completed Zombie Genocider, meaning I had the OP Mega Man Buster. Regardless, Simone is pretty easy, but not S tier material in my opinion. Tad is slightly below Simone as he offers no side quests upon saving him, and he is slightly more annoying because you have to fight Kent on the third day, meaning you have to finish all of Kent's missions and be on time for his final scoop. If you're late to Kent's final mission, an alternate fight will occur where Tad's already dead and cannot be saved. To be honest, the only time I've triggered this is when I've intentionally wanted to record this fight. When I play and follow the story, I usually come from the security room after activating Bomb Collector, so there's really no reason to miss this fight. Unless I guess you went straight to Bomb Collector and just lost track of time. The other reason I put Tad below Simone is because he's locked behind Kent, who can stun lock you, potentially injure Tad with his jump kick, and can actually provide a decent fight if you don't have the small chainsaw. Ronald can be found on the second day in Jill's sandwiches. To get him to join your party, you need to bring him one food item. The catch is, after he spawns, no food will appear in Jill's sandwiches for the rest of the game. Slightly annoying if you use this restaurant to heal before the scoop activated. So if you don't have a food item in your inventory, you either have to go across the plaza or get the snack located in the fountain. Once you give him some food, you get a photo op moment, which can get you some PP and a photojournalist achievement if you haven't received it. Like Simone, he's also required for the transmissionary achievement because he stages a mutiny later in the game and you have to give him food again. If you don't have food, then the entire room of survivors will become empty and they won't count for the Saint achievement. If you complete the mutiny, you'll gain some extra PP. Rescuing Ronald isn't too annoying, as when I play, Jennifer and the Colt also spawn next to him, making the zombie spawn sparse. Sometimes, if I'm doing pretty good on time for the day 2 scoops, then I'll just get him by himself and wait for Kent's second mission to activate. However, it is tedious destroying his barricade, and zombies are still active on the other side of the plaza, so there is still some challenge. Jennifer is next, and she spawns whenever you first meet the Colt. Luckily, while she's still in her box, she can't be injured. Also, during the initial encounter of the Colt, most of the zombies on that side of Paradise despawn, so that makes it somewhat easier. With that being said, if you only have a melee weapon, then that means you have to fight the cultists up close, which increases your chances of being gassed. If you're gassed during this encounter, then you have to haul ass back to Jennifer so she doesn't die. It is possible to get back to her on time, but it is annoying as you'll lose all your inventory and she'll at best only have like half her health. Also, Jennifer can't hold any weapons and teleports you to the fountain whenever the cutscene triggers, meaning you'll now be separated from any survivors you brought into the plaza. Sometimes I get her with Ronald, and other times I'll just pick her up when I'm coming back from Wonderland Plaza with Joe survivors. There is a benefit to her as I used her for my Frank the Pimp and Tour Guide achievements, which is for escorting 8 female survivors, so there is some utility for achievement hunters here. So starting off at B tier, Floyd is one of the day 2 Entrance Plaza survivors. He spawns in the Scoop Antique Lover on the 2nd floor. He has his own request letter, which makes him mandatory for the Transmissionary achievement. He's also made easier by the fact that you'll most likely save him after you defeat the Hall family, like I do. During this time, the 2nd floor will be void of zombies. Also, he needs to be carried, which helps you avoid being grabbed. Although I will say his movement speed isn't atrocious like Ross or Gil. Also, the entrance to the warehouse is right there when you enter Paradise Plaza. So why is he not A tier? Well, he's 2 loading screens away from the warehouse. Also, the Colt will still be active, and you might get an unlucky Colt spawn next to the warehouse entrance. Finally, I recruit him with Wayne, Rachel, and Jolie. The latter 2 I find to be annoying, so you could possibly have your hands full with this escort. But it will provide more PP because as the game progresses, survivor escorts are worth more PP. Wayne is one of the other day 2 Entrance Plaza survivors. He's locked behind the Hall family as he won't join until you defeat them. Other than that, he's pretty handy with a weapon, and he's actually pretty fast. Along with Floyd, I don't really have an issue with him. Whether I recruit him or Floyd first depends on where I defeat the final member of the Hall family. And that's essentially it. Rachel and Jolie. It's almost a tie between these two. Both have their own quirks that make them equally annoying. Rachel won't join you until you have Jolie in your party and will only follow her, not your commands. Jolie is separated from Rachel and you'll need to escort her from the bottom floor to the upstairs portion of the mission. You might have some trouble as there's still some zombies on the first floor, but the sniper rifles from the Hall family can help. Just be careful not to headshot the survivors. This duo are the final two of the Day 2 Entrance Plaza survivors along with Wayne and Floyd. They can't hold any weapons, so that's why they're below them. Also, Jolie is awful when it comes to attacking cultists. She is so aggressive. The only saving grace is that these guys give you a photo op for 20,000 PP whenever they hug, which is awesome and can give you the Artiste achievement if you don't already have it. Next up we have David in Shadow of the North Plaza, which begins at 11 PM on the first day. His scoop spawns some food items, which is always a plus as you're most likely need to heal when reaching him. He's another survivor that needs to be carried as he was shot by Steven. The slow trek back to the security room would probably be the most annoying part of this escort. I usually rescue him after I defeat Adam, so he's alone as I've already escorted Greg, Sinji, and you. I know some people couple him with this group, especially in speedruns. This is one of the speedrun strategies that I think new casual players can pull off. This is because Greg isn't technically in your party when you save him, as he can just stay in the Wonderland bathroom, and Sinji and you can stay at the entrance to North Plaza while you save David. I'm not gonna lie, in my most recent playthroughs, if I have the time, even I will combine these escorts, but it does make it a tad bit difficult. Keep in mind you have plenty of time until case 2 to save David, so don't feel obligated to combine these two escorts if you're unsure about it. Susan and Leroy. I'm combining these two together as I save them as a pair because they both spawn at 8 AM on the third day in the same plaza. Honestly, they don't really give me an issue, and I don't know what else to say about them. I just recommend a queen for dealing with the horde around Susan. You'll probably have to help Susan as she'll stop often the rest, but other than that, it's usually smooth sailing. So Heather and her sister appear in the Paradise Plaza on the morning of the second day. Heather is inside the toy shop while her sister is being swarmed by zombies. Obviously she's easier to rescue than her sister. Some people, including speedrunners, escort these guys to Alfresca Plaza to pick up Gordon. Whenever I try to do this, it always ends in disaster. I just drop them off in the security room and continue to the other Day 2 survivors. Okay, I actually pondered whether I should put Ross in B tier or C tier. In his scoop, Lovers, he's paired with Tanya, which, spoiler, she's ranked in a totally different bracket. It's theorized that he was shot by Joe, so you have to carry him. The most annoying thing about him is dealing with Tanya, which we'll discuss later. The only other thing I have to add is if you hand Ross a handgun, he'll shoot himself, allowing for a photo opportunity. Tanya also won't join your party if this happens. Honestly, I've never heard of anyone giving him the handgun thinking it was a part of the mission. I don't know if Capcom meant this to be a beginner's trap for new players, because all you have to do is keep talking to him and he'll join you. The only reason I think it's in the game is to give the player the opportunity for the Artiste achievement, but there's plenty of opportunities before and after this to get it, and it won't cost you a survivor. Other than that, Ross is fairly easy. I usually grab him and Tanya during medicine run after I fight Steven. So Greg is at the top of C tier, but make no mistake, he is the most important survivor in all of 72 Hour mode, as he unlocks a shortcut between Wonderland Plaza and Paradise Plaza. I even save him on playthroughs where I'm not saving survivors. That's how useful his shortcut is. There is one caveat that is slightly unique to Greg that makes him kind of annoying. He technically won't be a member of your party when you save him, which means he won't listen to any of your commands and you have to follow him to the shortcut. The fact that you just cut off the Space Rider means that zombies respawn again near the ride, so that makes it a bit more difficult in escorting him. Also, keep in mind at this point you're probably still at a low level, and this escort will most likely take place at night when the zombies get stronger. And remember, you still have to defeat Adam, who might be troublesome for new players. He can block attacks, has a lot of iframes, can take away multiple blocks of health, and can just be a pain in the neck to deal with. I often use an SMG or a shotgun and do the balloon strategy. There are easier ways to cheese him, one of them being the speedrun tactic using the convict's machine gun to defeat him. But in a casual playthrough, this means you'll have to defeat the convicts and escort Sophie to Wonderland Plaza, assuming you're going for the survivors. Either way, Greg is one of the more important survivors of the game, but in terms of escorting, I think he belongs at the top of C tier. If I manage to defeat Adam before 10 PM, I'll just escort Greg back to the security room by himself. So Shinji and Yu appear on the night of day 1. Most likely you'll rescue these guys after defeating Adam, like I do. They required a Japanese conversation book to escort. Although this may seem annoying, their mission is likely a tutorial on the book system. At this point in the game, there's probably a good chance that the player hasn't used the bookstores yet. The reason why they're C tier though is because you're most likely to be escorting Greg, and like I said, at a low level and at night, you'll probably have your hands full. However, these guys are pretty handy with firearms, and it's easy to find a handgun in Wonderland Plaza. Also, Shinji's pretty aggressive, so he's pretty competent in dealing with zombies. So yeah, that's essentially it. As I alluded to earlier, if I already escorted Greg, then I'll most likely get these guys by themselves, but I have been warming up to the idea of escorting these two with David. Gil is encountered on the early morning of day 3. He offers a photo op and he's another survivor that can be carried, so that helps him when escorting him. Most speedrunners couple him with the Wonderland day 3 survivors like Susan, Leroy, Paul, Debbie, and Mindy. I usually just escort him by himself. Around the time you rescue Gil, you'll probably get a message for Floyd's side quest where he wants wine. So Gil might be an award for players going to the food court to get the wine, as more wine spawns during his scoop. Debbie and Mindy are being held hostage by Paul on the morning of the 3rd day. I really don't have much to say about them. Debbie can hold weapons unlike most women survivors, which makes her slightly better. Honestly, the only reason these two are C tier is because Paul can be an annoying boss. Not really a tough one, but you know, we'll discuss it. So now it's time to discuss it. Paul is the only psychopath that can be recruited as a survivor. He's also required for the transmissionary achievement. As I said, his boss fight is more annoying, as if you don't stun lock him and finish him in the store, he'll run off and drop pipe bombs. Also make sure to save him quickly, as his health will quickly deplete after the fight. There is a photo op moment when this happens though. Because of the fire, I always end up giving them a health item. A lot of people would probably say he deserves to be higher on this list, because in his request he'll give you infinite Molotovs, but let me rant about his scoop for a second. The Molotov is a decent weapon for clearing out zombies, but there are a lot of drawbacks. First, queens are probably better and you don't have to track all the way back to the security room to get one. Second, if you're following the main story, then you'll probably have less than 5 in-game hours to use them before Otis evacuates the survivors, and you'll spend most of this time outside the security room doing the final story cases. Third, even if you're not going for the true ending, there's no more survivor escorts to use them on, and they're not helpful against Larry, the last boss of 72-hour mode. Lastly, you'll probably have your inventory full at this point, and I only take 2 or 3 in my playthroughs. I think these weapons are just mainly for the player to dick around with. Sorry for that mini rant, but let me know what you think. So Sophie appears in the park on the first night at 6 PM, but she's not the only one to do so. The convicts will also spawn at this time, and they respawn every night at midnight. These guys can make the first few escorts of the game pretty difficult. In fact, I've actually had Sophie die to these guys a few times. Other times I just kill the convicts using an SMG and get her through Paradise back to the warehouse with no issue. So yeah, the reason she's so low is honestly sometimes it's a gamble if you can get to her before the convicts do. Also, she can be used for Kent's photo challenge on day 2, and that's essentially it. If I'm not running too late with Leah, Bill, Bert, and Aaron, then I grab her after escorting those guys and right before I fight Adam. Honestly, Pamela is much lower than her sister for a few reasons. First, she can't be given a weapon like her sister. Second, I hear she won't follow Frank, she'll only follow her sister, but again, I couldn't have this verified. Third, she'll be swarmed by zombies. Although a queen will fix the situation, you'll need to get her quick. I feel like the horde size will vary. Sometimes the entire fountain is full, while at other times it's almost half. Annoyingly, the horde can sometimes spawn again if you move away. This happens with a few survivors like Bill and Nick and Sally. Speaking of which, these two spawn in Wonderland Plaza and, like Pamela, are surrounded by zombies. I recommend some queens. The reason they're so low is that the cult spawns might make escorting these guys a bit troublesome. They do offer a photo op moment though when they're hanging from the statue. Also, you're most likely going to escort Joe's survivors with these guys, and on that topic... Okay, so we have a 4-way tie between Joe's survivors, Kay, Lily, Janet, and Kelly. These guys appear in a day 2 scoop above the law. Along with Cliff's hostages, I debated on whether these guys should go to D tier. Joe's group is definitely higher, as Joe's a much easier boss compared to Cliff. Even without the small chainsaw, she's pretty easy to take out. It can be tricky in saving these guys, as Joe would prioritize her captives if Frank isn't actively attacking her, which could be troublesome in the off chance you have to retreat to heal. For the escort itself, I don't really have an issue with them, other than the cultists in Wonderland and Paradise if the cult has already spawned. These guys are essentially vital for the Frank and Pimp achievement, so maybe they should have been higher. Josh, Rich, and Barbara are all tied for the bottom of C tier. As already said, I consider Cliff a harder boss battle compared to Joe, as he's faster, hits harder and more often, and takes longer to fight if he manages to use his trapdoors. After the fight, these three will be locked in the empty store. I should point out that Dead Rising has a zombie multiplier on day 2 and day 3, meaning more zombies will spawn as the game goes on. The reason I say that is when escorting these guys, you'll probably begin to notice day 2's multiplier, as I have to babysit these guys whenever they get stuck in the horde, which happens often. They're a distance away from the warehouse, and the fastest way would probably be the park. Keep in mind the convicts would have already respawned at this point. In my playthrough, I've already killed the convicts a second time. If I didn't take too much time escorting Tanya and Ross and fighting Cliff, then I armed these guys with some weapons and then take them through the park to the food court to Alfresco Plaza to get Gordon. On my way back, I go through Entrance Plaza and then back to Paradise to get Heather and Pamela before case 3, which is a handful as sometimes I just leave Gordon for a later escort. If I'm running low on time, then I probably already got the twins in Paradise and end up only getting these guys. It should be said late morning to early afternoon day 2 is pretty chaotic, as it's almost non-stop story missions, survivor escorts, and psychopath battles. No lie, between 7 AM and 1 PM on the second day, there are 8 scoops and 3 main story cases, so getting these guys in the middle of that fiasco is why they're at the bottom of C tier, as you're most likely put out your hair when you're wasting time babysitting these guys. Kendall starts off D tier and he'll spawn during case 5-2 in the North Plaza. If you're following the story, then you'll most likely encounter him when you're transporting Isabella. The game essentially spawns him to help you during the escort, as he's very useful with his shotgun. He's also required for the transmissionary achievement, as he has a mutiny later. Granted, his mutiny is a lot easier to complete than Ronald's, as you can just talk to him to dissolve it. So why is he in D tier? Well, you're probably going to have your hands full with escorting Isabella, and now you have another survivor added to the mix. I know I said Kendall is useful with his shotgun, but keep in mind this escort is at nighttime on day 3, so if multiple zombies get a hold of him, then you have to drop Isabella to help him and pray a horde doesn't attack Isabella in the meantime. I kid you not, sometimes I've had playthroughs where either Kendall will die or Isabella will. There is a tactic that speedrunners use that involves taking Kendall to Sean's fight. I don't use this as I think it would be a nightmare for casual playthroughs, because the theater group, in my opinion, is a nightmare, but it is something to note. So Tanya is so low because she's so much more annoying than Ross. She's aggressive and will only follow Ross, not Frank's commands. Her aggression often means she'll attack a zombie 25 feet away from her if it looks at her funny, making it a bit annoying to escort her, as she'll either waste a lot of your time killing zombies or getting attacked by them. But luckily I'm not the only one who thinks she's annoying.
In my humble opinion, Tanya is one of, if not the worst survivor in the game to deal with, considering that even if you give her a chainsaw, she still gets stuck on every zombie. She is fairly aggressive to zombies in her general area, and also, if a zombie rubs up on her, she proceeds to do a pushing animation where she gets grabbed easily. So, she's a bit of a pain in the neck.
Bill. So I'll discuss these next 4 together, as they're a big first escort in most playthroughs, and many players, including myself, save these guys together. Bill is hidden in the entrance plaza behind some boxes in the closet on day 1. To be honest, I didn't even know Bill existed until my 3rd playthrough back on the 360. He has some healing items back there which are helpful, and Bill himself is pretty decent with firearms. Since the shutter to Paradise Plaza is closed until case 2, the player has to go all the way back through Alfresco, so I usually just hand Bill an SMG and wait until 4 o'clock when Bert and Aaron spawn. Speaking of Bert, when I enter Alfresco Plaza, you have to destroy his barricade, which is sometimes easier said than done. Not to mention you have to look after Bill when doing so. Bert will attack you on sight, so you have to hit him 5 times to make him stop. I usually hand him the shotgun that I used to fight Carlito and give his bat to Aaron. Bert is capable of defending himself as he's pretty aggressive. Him and Bill are the more competent of the group. After saving the pair, I go to the food court, heal anyone if necessary, and wait until 5 AM for Leah to spawn. Leah is the game's way of showing the player some survivors may need to be carried by Frank. The good news is this makes her easy to carry, as zombies won't be able to grab her. The bad news is this makes it a bit harder to help Bill, Bert, and Aaron, as you have to put her down if you need to thin the horde. Unlike Floyd or Susan, she is painfully slow if not being carried. Luckily, Alfresca Day 1 isn't that bad, but if you're on a fresh playthrough, then you'll be at a low level, and zombies can still pose a threat, especially since you don't have queens at this point in the game, as they don't spawn until you return to the warehouse. Also, if you take too long with Leah, then you might run into the convicts and have to save Sophie on top of these guys. If you fight the convicts, by the time you reach Paradise and finish Kent's first mission like I do, then the zombies will probably be augmented, but luckily Day 1 Paradise is still sparse with zombies. Aaron is one of the more incompetent members of this group. He has a cowardly AI, meaning he'll just stop and cry in the middle of a horde. You'll have to babysit him more than Bert or Bill. Also, fun trivia about Barricade Pair. If you kill Aaron, then Bert won't join you. Gordon is encountered on the morning of Day 2 and is similar to Aaron, having the coward's AI. He can be very annoying to babysit because, as I already said, you'll be crunched on time between escorting other survivors and trying to complete the story. It won't be uncommon to see him stop and cry in the middle of a horde of zombies, or just crawl around like an idiot. Also, I usually give him a weapon, but it's rare to see him actually use it. As I already alluded to, Alfresco on Day 2 is a madhouse. Thankfully in my playthroughs, it's the last time I escort a survivor through the plaza. Not to mention, if you took a while in getting to him, then you'll probably have to deal with the cultist spawns too. Sometimes, depending on how I'm playing, I'll either escort him with Cliff survivors or take him to Wonderland to pick up Nick, Sally, and Joe survivors. I think he belongs at the bottom, but let me know what you think. For me, he's mainly at the bottom because of his AI and how dangerous Alfresca can be on Day 2. Alyssa, Brett, and Jonathan are starting off the F tier in a 3-way tie. First off, they shoot you upon entering the store and you'll need to show them the picture of the event in order to escort them. Meaning if you don't have the picture, you'll have to backtrack all the way to the rooftop and take it. The only saving grace about these guys is that food will spawn in a gun shop unique to the scoop. And you'll probably need this as you probably would have taken hits from either them or the zombies on the way to save them. North Plaza is a nightmare at this point in the game, and imagine having to escort these guys on top of it. Either way you go about it, either through the park to Paradise or from Wonderland shortcut to Paradise, you'll run into some trouble. I will say for some people, Brett might be useful as an easy way to get the perfect gunner achievement a bit early because he has the machine gun. But if you're going for the true ending, the special forces will show up later, so it's not like you're pressed on time. I usually just use the machine gun to clear the way back to Paradise, or even go back to Wonderland to pick up Paul, Debbie, and Mindy. Either way, be sure to have healing items, because either you will take a lot of damage escorting these guys, or they will. Their pathfinding is awful, and I find myself having to babysit Alyssa more than the other two. Okay, the survivors that you rescue from Sean are the bane of my existence. I place Cheryl slightly higher than the other four, as she's required for the transmissionary achievement, and their request can net you some extra PP in the late game. Fun fact, it's the only time I use the Camera 2 magazine from Kent. All survivors appear in a strange group on midnight of the third day. Beth, Nathan, Ray, and Michelle are the rest of Sean's survivors and are tied for last place. But why do I hate all 5 of these survivors and escorting them back to the security room? Oh boy, let's get started. First, they're locked behind Sean. Now his battle isn't a difficult fight, just be cautious of his attacks and counterattack afterwards. The main issue is his henchmen in the theater before and after his death. You can still get gassed before or after Sean's fight, and if that happens, you might as well just reload your latest save. If you rescue a survivor before dealing with the cultist, then you risk the survivor engaging them and possibly dying. Second, Sean drops the Brainwashing magazine. Now you're probably wondering why I haven't spoke about this. The magazine essentially makes every survivor act like Kendall, hyper-aggressive, and survivors will no longer stop and cower like Aaron or Gordon. I'm not gonna lie, when I have this magazine, I feel like the effects are very minute. Some playthroughs I grab it and others I don't. I think the reason is because including Sean's hostages, then you probably only have like 16 survivors left in the game. You have to carry Susan and Gil, so that's 2 survivors this magazine doesn't really affect. Cheryl and Mindy can't wield weapons, and Tad and Simone are right next to the warehouse anyway, so this really won't help you escort them. To summarize, with or without the magazine, escorting the 5 movie theater survivors will give you a migraine. Their pathfinding will often glitch, and you'll have to escort them through the theater, which now has zombies again, and through Paradise Plaza, most likely at nighttime. So you might be asking, what's the issue? Well, the third and final reason is that for some reason, Paradise Plaza is legit overflowing with zombies. Yes, I know the zombie multiplier is in effect, but even for Day 3 Paradise, it is insane. I have no idea what causes this, as even the Dead Rising wiki can't answer it. But it is a trek to get back, so I recommend having some queens. Even if they don't die, odds are one of them will be close to death. At the end of the day, I can say with a straight face that Sean's hostages are the ones that come to mind when I think of someone complaining about Dead Rising survivors. And that is why, for me, they end up concluding F tier. So that is it for this tier list discussion hybrid video. The first Dead Rising definitely has some interesting survivor mechanics. Some love it, some hate it. Some think the difficult escorts are a staple of the game, and the sequels made the escorts too easy. Hopefully some people found my ramblings entertaining. If you sat through the entirety of the video, then I thank you. I know many people enjoyed my psychopath analysis video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one too. If you didn't enjoy the video, then please let me know why in the comments. Either way, if you liked the video, disagreed with me, have your own thoughts, just let me know down below. I'll catch you guys later.